The virtual recruiting hall continues. Welcome to episode 10 of Staying in the House, powered by gopherhole.com. This weekend, the Gophers received a commitment from Country Club Hills, Illinois, four-star running back Marquise Irving, which elevated the program's recruiting ranking to number 7, according to 24/7 Sports. And that's now 5 four-star commitments already for the 2021 recruiting class. I made a graphic to show you where the Gophers stack up nationally against some of the powers. Ohio State's at number 1. Then you got Tennessee, North Carolina. Mac Brown's doing a really nice job with that program. Clemson, USC, Florida. The Gophers are in really elite company when you look at the tiers of recruiting right now. One spot ahead of Iowa. That rivalry is going to be fun and exciting to watch with the way the 2021 recruiting looks right now. Wisconsin, Iowa, and Minnesota, it's going to be a battle in the Big Ten West, which is fun and exciting, especially when you have all those rivalries associated with it. Like I said, 5 four-star commitments in the 2021 class. QB Athan Kaliak-Manis, a dual threat QB with a lot of upside. Running back Marquise Irving from Illinois. I love his balance, his agility. We're going to dive into him in just a little bit. Quarterback, wide receiver, jack of all trades, Sam Jackson, just a tremendous athlete from the state of Illinois. Cornerback, Stephen Ortiz Jr. We've talked a lot about him on the program. Also interviewed him if you want to check that out on the YouTube channel. Versatile, physical player that is going to thrive in the nickel role for the Gophers. And then Avante Dickerson, top 10 cornerback prospect in the nation, a top 100 player, according to 24/7 Sports. So you see the type of talent the Gophers are bringing in right now, and that's allowing them to be in this conversation among some of the elite programs. Even within that group of 5 four-star commitments, you're seeing what the Gophers are doing in the state of Illinois. 3 players in the top 7 of in-state recruiting in Illinois are coming to the Gophers, according to 24/7 Sports. So you see this type of recruiting is unprecedented for Gopher football. I mean, I've been covering this program for 5 years very closely. I haven't seen anything quite like this. Every year, the caliber of players seems to get just a little bit better. I see that increased upside and athleticism with these players. Each year, it's just continued to get a little bit better. And you can see the Gophers value testing metrics and certain traits in their recruiting. And I've developed a sense of what they're looking for in some of the players that they seem to consistently value. So, for example, I created a graphic to show you guys some of the things that I'm looking for when I'm evaluating running back and defensive back prospects. So first, starting with the running backs, excellent agility, short area quickness. So being able to move laterally sideline to sideline, that's extra important when you're running outside zone, as we've talked about before in some of the videos, being able to cut back quickly. Elusiveness, ability to make that first defender miss in space, and that's especially important when we're talking about perimeter runs, those stretch plays that the Gophers love to run. Balance. My favorite trait in a running back is being able to fight through contact and stay on your feet. Are they able to work in crowded spaces? That's something that I'm always asking myself. And dynamic cuts goes hand in hand with that agility. And then pad level, that low center of gravity, that's something that coaches can develop if you don't have that. But some of the most elite runners are able to play with that pad level, balance, and have those dynamic cutbacks. And then it's the vision, the processing, the speed, the awareness, being able to understand what's going on in front of you. Are you able to read the defense, looking at the tendencies and pre-snap, especially if you're a zone runner, when you have the bang, the bend, and the bounce read? Are you able to process what's in front of you and find those rushing creases? Are you patient? Do you have that vision and that processing speed to do what you need to do to pick up the necessary yardage? So leading into the film from Marquise Irving, I wanted to give you a working knowledge of some of the things that I look for in running back prospects. And of course, that varies. You want to have your elusive running backs, those 5'10" type of players that have the skills to make that first defender miss, above average agility. And then you want those power type of backs that can run through defenders, pick up extra yardage. They're perfect for the late game when teams are getting worn down. You bring them in and let them mow over people all day long. Those are the types of different backs that you can have. But these are a few traits that are universal that most programs are looking for when they're valuing certain running back prospects. Dive into the film here with Marquise Irving. And one of the things that I love about him is the balance. We mentioned that earlier. It's one of the traits that I'm looking for and valuing the most because a lot of times you're in tight spaces a lot. You have to be able to fight through contact and be able to stay on your feet. And when you watch him run to the perimeter, he's got the ability to make that first defender miss, spin move, stiff arm, breaking tackles consistently. That's one of the most impressive aspects of his game is being able to stay on his feet in traffic and make defenders miss consistently. Also, he's shown a knack for finding those backside running creases, but also he redirect runs pretty consistently throughout his games. When things look broke down, he can come out of crowded spaces and make something happen. You see their spin move and then tons of traffic here. Defenders have no option to bring him down because he's very difficult to wrap up, especially when he gets into the open field. You see the passing game here, those angle routes, swing passes. Watch how he stops and boom, redirects, makes several defenders miss. Then his helmet rips off and he finishes the run. That's the type of determination that he runs with. So tough to bring down. You arm tackle this guy, it's over. You take a bad angle. Look at this type of perimeter run. First cut, and then boom, off to the races. He shows that burst in the open field to bust off explosive runs consistently. Another run here where he fights through boom, cut back, and then fights through that tackle again. This is another run that I love that I pulled out from later in the highlight clip. Being able to work in those crowded spaces, it's something that Marquise Irving is so successful with. He's able to find all of the backside rushing creases when they're available. So again, checking the boxes of the agility and being able to stay on his feet, the quickness, the burst, ability to make big plays. He's a four-star prospect for a reason. I'm excited to see what he can do in the Gophers scheme, specifically because of those agile skills, the vision, being able to play. He checks all the boxes in the outside zone scheme when he's running that, inside zone, all those concepts align well with the skills that he provides. So Marquise Irving, a huge get for the Gophers, had 10 Big Ten offers, including the Gophers. So being able to fend off a lot of the people that you're playing with on a consistent basis. The Gophers continue to just wow people with their ability to recruit, and there seems to be some more buzz around other prospects that are high caliber Minnesota might be able to land coming up here. I not only wanted to discuss the running back traits that I'm looking for when I'm watching film, but the defensive backs as well. You see, this is a core component of the class. With the defensive back talent the Gophers have brought in, we've talked a lot about Stephen Ortiz Jr. and what he brings to the table. Avante Dickerson, I plan to do a breakdown on him as well. But Darius Green, the safety, was the recent commit. So after I go through these defensive back traits, I'm going to go through some of his film and the skill set that he provides. It's pretty unique, and we'll dive into it in just a second. But first, the defensive back traits. Few things I'm looking for: fluidity and foot quickness, ability to transition from backpedal opening your hips, having that transition quickness. From a testing metric standpoint, you're looking for those short shuttles to be impressive. The straight line speed is something that's a component of that, but I see the short shuttle being one of the most important components. Your versatility to play multiple roles, that seems to be something that is really valued at the safety position and the nickel spots, having those guys be interchangeable so they can cover tight ends and running backs up the seam, being able to move them into the box, use their physicality against the run. Those are just a few things that they can provide if you're able to play multiple positions. Also varying up your mix of defensive back skill sets. So not looking all the time at those 6'1" players with length, the physicality that can jam and press on the outside. You also want to have a blend of those 5'10" guys that are very quick, have excellent agility, are able to match up with some of those shifty slot receivers, because on a week-to-week basis, you're going to play different styles of receivers. You've got guys that are more shifty slot receivers, very dynamic with the ball in their hands, and then you have those bigger physical possession style wide receivers that you want to have match up with those type of players. So you look at how, for example, Benjamin St. Juste has all that length, all that size. He's able to match up with a bigger wide receiver on a week-to-week basis. And you got Coney Durr, who's more of the explosive player with above-average testing metrics in terms of the vertical and things like that. You have guys that that complement each other with the straight line speed and the ability to be explosive, and then the guys that have the length and ability to jam. So matching up opponent tendencies with skill sets is so important, and it's why you have to have different defensive back skill sets in the toolbox every year, especially with the safeties and the nickels guys. You're looking for those physical players that can come up into the box, do different things. The Chris Williamson type of player. You look at what he's going to do with the Giants. He's going to be the hybrid player who comes into the box, plays the deep half, possibly is in the nickel. The more you can do in the defense, Rossi will find ways to maximize you, use you in the scheme creatively. That's one of the things that I would say Joe Rossi is so exceptional at, is finding ways to use his athletes in the best possible way. And then ball skills. How active are you on the ball? I've done a lot of research on DB havoc, getting your hands on the football and the value of that. Last year, the Gophers, and a lot of their impressive defensive performances, they were able to get their hands on the ball more often than usual. I plan on talking about that in some of the future content that I have in the works. But getting your hands on the ball is something that's so important. And maybe if you get beat a little bit on a comeback and you got to recover, are you able to have the speed and athleticism to get into that passing lane? Those are the types of things that you're looking at: the ball skills, the instincts, the reaction. So all of these traits, I know it's a long list, but they're things to watch for when looking at defensive back prospects. So like I mentioned earlier, the skill set of Darius Green is unique. I compared it in my post to possibly being a Chris Williamson type of player in Joe Rossi's defense. The testing metrics are interesting. We don't have a lot. We got that 10.62 100 meter time from Darius Green. So we know he has the athleticism and explosiveness. He played multiple positions in the defense: cornerback, coming into the box, playing linebacker, safety. There are a lot of different roles that he played in the defense, and that's what makes him unique. How is Joe Rossi going to utilize him in the scheme? And like I said, with the measurables, Chris Williamson was 6 foot 205, and you see Darius Green coming in at 6 foot 190. He possibly adds a little bit of weight, has that physicality, that same type of versatility to play multiple different positions and be utilized based upon the types of matchups you have on a week-to-week basis. Chris Williamson was so key in a lot of these games, so it's important to have players with those types of skills. So physicality, ability to tackle in space. He doesn't have extremely long arms, it doesn't look like. I don't think he's above average in that category, but he's got that explosiveness, that range, the physicality in the box. He's shown the ability to fight through traffic, fight through blockers, to make plays, and also has done a nice job of tackling in space in some of these clips as well. I pulled out some of the best ones that I've seen and wanted to include ones that showed him playing different roles in the defense. You see that versatility and being able to cover like that. He has the skills to handle the receivers, the tight ends, the backs that possibly come up the seam. So the biggest question is, what does his role look like, and how are the Gophers able to maximize his athleticism? The good news is Joe Rossi has shown a track record, and I think it's one of his strengths, is taking these types of players with this versatility and finding roles that allow them to be successful and maximize their potential. I know Green is only a 3-star prospect, probably didn't get as much buzz as most of these guys, but I'm a lot higher on him than the recruiting services seem to be, just because of that potential upside, that athleticism, and the things that he can do in the defense. I wanted to give you an idea of some of the traits to look for at running back and defensive back, and I plan to do more videos analyzing the prospects that the Gophers have already landed, but wanted to give you perspective with the 2 latest additions to the 2021 recruiting class. I've also been receiving a lot of questions about how the Gophers round out this 2021 class and continue the historic trend it's on. And it centers around the offensive line. I've talked at length about the talent that's coming back, the production that you have there. It's going to be one of the strengths of the team, but you got to think ahead and continue to add depth at that position. You look at the things that PJ Fleck has done with this roster since he arrived. It was identifying the areas that needed patching right away. The wide receiver position, the offensive line was a clear area. He came in, didn't have much offensive line talent that was available for spring practice due to injuries and the numbers at the position. and the wide receivers needed a talent injection. So he went in right away and focused on those areas, building that up in the recruiting cycles. Then, as we've evolved to the latest cycles, the defensive line has quietly been an area that he's focused on. You look at D'Angelo Carter, someone who I love, that I think is going to turn into a very, very talented player for the Gophers now that he's been in the system for a while. Ability to fight through, take on blockers. He's just disruptive, and I loved his film. He was one of the standout guys in that class. Rashad Cheney was a big get at the time, beat out a lot of SEC programs for him at the defensive tackle position. Ali Saad, an intriguing player who's very athletic that they will continue to develop. And once he gets in the strength and conditioning program, we'll see where he's at. Then you go to the defensive ends. You've got Jalen Logan Redding, who was a late addition in the last recruiting class. Danny Strigow, a wrestler who's a technician at the position. You see him being able to develop in the system as well. The hand technique and things like that stand out with him. Ja Joyner, some of the best tape that I've seen from a Gophers defensive line prospect all the time I've been doing this. He could be the name to remember. Can't wait to see him when he gets on campus. Gage Keys, another guy with length and developmental upside. Then you look at 2019 with MJ Anderson, Devion Harris. The defensive end position has been valued, and they've been slowly developing those guys, and they will continue to do so. I'm not as worried about the defensive line as I am the offensive line. And Ariante Ursary was someone that they landed in the last cycle. I talked about his athleticism, length, and ability to continue growing and developing his technique. Martez Lewis is the same way, a really, really big offensive tackle, but has elite movement skills. Those are traits that you're looking for, and we'll talk about those in the future within the zone blocking scheme. J.J. Godet has been adding weight, getting bigger, a tackle prospect to keep an eye on in the future. So, rounding out this offensive line room is going to be the last step in this 2021 recruiting cycle. They've done a nice job with the skill spots, but adding talent, maybe someone like Cameron James, an offensive tackle from Chicago, would be an awesome addition to add necessary depth and developmental potential at the position. Need to continue looking at ways to solidify the offensive line moving into the future, then possibly add another defensive tackle and defensive end. You want to prioritize positions, and then you want to just dash depth here and there. So I like how they're building out the roster. I see what they're doing. I mentioned it in a podcast. Linebacker, the team speed at that position, that's going to be the biggest difference you'll notice moving forward here with Jaquandis Burns, who has a chance. When I was watching the players at the spring practice, the one that we had, Jaquandis Burns might have been the guy that stood out the most. The bend that he has, the length, the sideline to sideline range, the block deconstruction skills, like all the stuff that you're looking for among linebacker prospects, he has it. And then Lucas Finney and Cody Lindenberg, I had a chance to see them in on-field workouts in the summer, and their coverage skills were fantastic. That's definitely an area where they're going to stand out. So sideline to sideline range, ability to cover, run players down sideline to sideline in the running game and be able to take on blocks. The linebacker room is filling up nicely. The front seven on the defensive side of the ball, I'm not too concerned about. The skill spots are filling up nicely. The biggest question is going to be rounding out this offensive line group so that moving into the future, you have guys that are ready to slide into prominent roles and continue to build this roster to the point where you have competitive depth everywhere. And I think you're getting to that point now in PJ Fleck's tenure that you're going to see this roster start to take shape and have the consistency and depth needed to compete at a high level. So that's just a little brief synopsis of where everything's at from a recruiting standpoint. I want to bring some more videos like this to you with analysis on the recruits. So stay tuned for some more coming down the pipeline here very, very soon. I also want to remind you to like and subscribe to Gopher Hole on YouTube. It's completely free. You help us out so much when you do that. So if you could go and just press the subscribe button, it would be excellent. Follow me on Twitter at Daniel House NFL for the latest Gopher football, Gopher basketball, Vikings content, anything you're looking for related to Minnesota sports and Minnesota football specifically. Follow at Daniel House NFL and go to gopherhole.com for all of the latest Gophers news. I want to thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.